In section 5.4, we're going to look at describing the center of a distribution. And we've discussed the center a little bit before, but now I'm going to define three different measures of center. First, the mean of a distribution is the arithmetic average value. Next, the median of a distribution is the middle value. And finally, the mode of a distribution is the most frequently occurring value. So for each of these, we'll go through the steps to calculate it and then look at an example. And we'll also look at how an outlier can affect these measures. So first, let's look at how to calculate the mean of a set of observations, and we call the mean x bar, and we denote it by this x with a line over it here. So the first step in finding the mean is to find the sum of all the values and then divide the sum by the number of values. So we can write that down as this formula here. If I have n observations and I call them x1, x2, all the way up to xn, then the formula for the mean is given by x bar is equal to the sum of x1 through xn divided by n. So let's look at an example of that. I'm going back to my chart here that we've seen before with the gas mileages for some 2011 model year vehicles. And we're going to look at city mile per gallon again. My first step is to find the sum of the values. So I just go down my column here of city mile per gallon, and if I add those all up, I will get 281 as the sum. Now I want to divide the sum by the number of values. So in my chart here I have 13 different cars, so my number of values n is 13. Then my mean x bar is going to be given by the sum, which is 281 divided by the number of values 13. And if I plug that into my calculator and round to one decimal place, I will get 21.6 miles per gallon is the mean miles per gallon of all those cars. Now remember, when we looked at this chart before, we said that the Toyota Prius is an outlier. It's the only hybrid car in the chart, and it's got this really high city mile per gallon of 51. So what happens to the mean if we leave out the Toyota Prius? So we're going to do the same things. We'll find the sum of the values. So when I add up everything except for the Toyota Prius, I'm going to get a sum of 230, which is 51 less than my sum that I had before because I'm leaving off that 51 miles per gallon. And now I've got, instead of 13 values, I've got 12 when I leave off the Prius. So my mean x bar is going to be 230 divided by 12, and that will give me 19.2 miles per gallon if I round to one decimal place. So that's actually a pretty big difference. Before I had 21.6, and now I've gone all the way down to 19.2, so that's a difference of 2.4 miles per gallon. So leaving out the outlier actually had a pretty good big effect on the mean. My next measure of center is the median, so let's look at the steps to calculate that. First, we're going to arrange all of the observations in increasing order, and then we said the median is the middle of the distribution. So if we have an odd number of observations, then we just look for that middle observation in the list, and that will be our median m. If I've got an even number of observations, then I have to look at the two center observations in the list and find their mean. So if I'm just finding the mean of two observations, that'll be x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and that will give me my median if x1 and x2 are the center two observations in the ordered list. So let's go back to our example and look at calculating the median. First, I'm going to arrange all of my observations in increasing order. So I'll just go through my list. And my smallest value here is 16, so that'll be first. And then I've got some 17s, 1, 2, 3 17s, so I put them next in my list. And then 2 18s, those will be next in my list. And then 2 19s. Then a 21. Then a couple of 22s. And a 24. And a 51. So that is all my values arranged in increasing order. And here they are typed up, so it's a little bit easier to look at. So remember I said I have 13 cars in my chart. So I'm looking for the middle observation here, and that will be the 7th observation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This 19 here is my middle observation. So my median is going to be 19 miles per gallon here. Alright, what happens in this case if we leave off the Toyota Prius? Well, I go through my same steps. This time, when I arrange all my observations in increasing order, it's the same, but I've left off the 51 for the Prius on the end. Now I've got an even number. I have 12 observations here, so I need to look at the middle two, and that will be the 6th and 7th observation. So that will be this 18 and 19 here, and I need to find their mean. So my median is going to be equal to 18 plus 19 divided by 2, which is 18.5 miles per gallon. So that changed a little bit from my median when I included the Prius, which was 19 miles per gallon. So I've dropped down by 0.5 miles per gallon here when I left out the outlier. So it had a little bit of an effect on it, but not as much as we saw with the mean. Now my last measure of center that I'm going to define here is the mode. And the mode, remember we said, is the observation that I see most often. So again, my first step here is going to be to arrange all of the observations in increasing order. And after I do that, I'm just going to look for the value that occurs most often, and that will be my mode. So going back to my example here, my first step is the same, so I've just arranged all the observations in increasing order for the city miles per gallon of the cars. And now I'm looking for the one that I see most often, so I'm just going to count how many times I see each of these. I've got 1 16, 3 17s, 2 18s, 2 19s, 1 21, 2 22s, 1 24, and 1 51. So the biggest number I see here is 3. So the value that occurs most often is 17. So my mode is equal to 17 miles per gallon. So that was pretty easy to find. Now what happens if we leave off the Toyota Prius and look at the mode again? Well, I've still got all of my observations arranged in increasing order, and I've left off the Toyota Prius, so my 51 is gone here. But that doesn't change the number of times any of the rest of these values occur. So 17 still occurs most often, and my mode is still 17 miles per gallon. So that doesn't change at all when we leave off the outlier. So let's just summarize what we saw here in terms of outliers. Some measures of center are more resistant to the influence of outliers than others. So notice we had the mode that didn't change at all by ignoring the outlier. We had 17 miles per gallon before, and it was still 17 miles per gallon after we left off the outlier. The median changed a little bit. We had 19 miles per gallon before and 18.5 miles per gallon after we ignored the outlier. The mean changed the most. We had 21.6 miles per gallon for our mean before and 19.2 miles per gallon after we ignored the outlier. So that changed the most. The mode didn't change at all, the median changed a little bit, and the mean changed the most. So that finishes up section 5.4, and the things you should know here, you should be able to find the various measures of center, find the mean. Remember we said this is the average, where you add them all up and then divide by the number of observations. The median is the middle value of observations, and the mode is the one that occurs most often. So be able to find all of those from a set of data.